Right, we're live. So, good morning, Ugo. Thank you so much once again for agreeing to be interviewed by me. I know you don't know me very well, so it was gracious of you to say yes. So I'm really, really excited and pleased that you actually agreed to say yes. I was checking online to see if you had done any interview previously with someone else because I didn't want to ask the same questions, but I didn't find anything. So tell me, am I the first person interviewing you?
Oh yes, 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 yes. Number of times,
Okay, fantastic, fantastic.
but not
Okay,
on this platform. Not on this platform though. But number of times.
okay. Okay. Just to start, I'm going to ask you to tell us a bit about your backstory, how you started, what your background is, what inspired you to start Nairametrics, and then we'll just take it from there. So go ahead.
All right, thanks, Nomi. So just as an intro, excuse me. My name is Ugodre of I am a chartered accountant. Work experience spans over 20 years. In finance, treasury, financial management, change management, marketing, commercial, revenue assurance. I mean, a whole lot. Even in investing as well, financial analysis. So I've done that over the last 20 years throughout my professional career. And so, also an accountant by profession, and that's my first degree. And then I'm a chartered accountant as well. I'm a fellow of Institute of Chartered Accountants. And then, of course, a few other certifications here and there. So, my background, I'm more well known as the founder of Nairametrics. Nairametrics is a financial resource online platform where we publish financial and business focused news and analysis. We also publish financial literacy content, text, video, podcasts. We also have a couple of radio shows where we also propagate financial literacy, mostly to Nigerian audience, locally and in diaspora. And so, Nairametrics started as a blog sometime in 2013. I used to blog a lot on my own, and back then when I blogged, I started blogging because when I was investing in the stock market especially after my experience in the 2007 and 8 crash, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of information out there that was teachable to people who wanted to invest. So a lot of information that you'd see out there were mostly from websites that were catered to foreign countries, right? Not to Nigeria. And there was only just one website like that then that quite did a lot of work. The website still exists today. It's called ProShare. And so I thought maybe we needed another one with softer language that could connect more to Nigerians who don't really need to understand finance. So just make it very simple. And so I started blogging then. I think my blog then was called Ugometrics. I was like in 2011, 12, or thereabout, yeah. And so I mean it kind of caught on through Twitter. I was probably one of the first people that started pushing a lot of personal finance and financial literacy content on social media. It wasn't very as common as it is now, you know. So I was doing it then, and I now sometime in 2015, I think I kind of thought, okay, no, sometime in 2014. 2013, sorry, I'm mixing up the years. It's been a while, sorry. So 2013,
I don't
I
mind you.
decided to maybe make this a little bit more formal, and then I didn't want it to be just about me. So also wanted a lot of people to be on the platform, and I wanted to make it sound more professional and more encompassing. And then I switched it to Nairametrics. So I just dropped the Ugo and dropped the Naira because the metrics there it was always going to be a platform about explaining things, about analyzing things, about trying to compare things. So I mean, which is really what metrics is about. So, and whether we're writing about news, we try to explain it better, try to analyze it, try to point our readers to value within the news. So, and so that's how Nairametrics was born in 2013. But as a company, you officially became a company in 2015 because at that time I was like, maybe this might just be something that, might be job opportunities for people and might probably be bigger than just a website. And as of 2015, I registered a company and here we are today. So that's the short story.
Wow, fantastic. You know, you told us what your motive was for starting Nairametrics, but I wonder, has it changed? Did you have reason to pivot along the line to do something a little bit different from what you conceptualized when you first started?
Yes, because at that time it was excuse me. So it wasn't really so the pivot wasn't really about the concept. The pivot really was more about the level of seriousness and professionalism that I wanted for the platform. So originally it was just me blogging to myself, blogging to my own audience. I really didn't care whether they were reading it or not. It was just me just blogging for fun, right? And also, but when you now start to write for deliberately for an audience and you're trying to grow that audience, and then you're putting a lot of energy and effort into deepening your content and your research, then that is serious business. So that involves a lot of money. So the difference was that between 2013 and 15 was when I started investing a lot of my time and effort deliberately. I think it was sometime in 2014 that I actually probably put in my initial seed because I bootstrapped all the way even till now. So yeah, I can remember my first plenty. I don't want to mention the money, but plenty money like that. Like I went years basically bankrolling them, and I had staff who were also writing. I had to teach them how to write, paying their salaries for years without an income. Excuse me. So it was then that I mean, so that's if you call that a pivot, maybe yes. So pivot into you know making this a very serious business, and that's when it started in 2013,
Okay.
14, and
Okay.
then in 15, and I registered a company.
Okay. I
Yeah.
looked at your profile. I noticed that there was a point that you were doing this alongside a paid employment, and then there was a point that this was all you were doing, and then you went back into paid employment. So, would you say the time that you were focused on Nairametrics itself alone, without being in any other paid employment, was the time that it grew the most? And then why did you decide to go back into paid employment? Did you had it lost your drive? Had it stopped giving you fulfillment when you went back into paid employment, or you just felt it was an autopilot at that time and you didn't need to oversee it anymore?
Hmm. Interesting question. Then a funny thing, I don't think I've ever done an interview where I'm basically giving a background of my history. It's often been a written interview. Anyway, so excuse me. I've always so the only time I wasn't in paid employment was between I think the second half of 2013.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I think it was just so where I was working at the time, the company was about to be sold, so I was involved in the sale. You know, any part of 2012. So I always knew that I was going to exit the company, and so this was just something I was doing by the side, and it wasn't really anything formal then. But as I was getting towards exiting the company, yeah, coincidentally as well, I was already building this up. So I don't think they were mutually exclusive. So I didn't have to leave paid employment to start my metrics. They were always to get it would always the same idea to me. I always thought that it was something I could do at the same time. And I always tell people something. I always say, look, if you want to start a business while having a paid job, it's always good to do something that you're very passionate about. Because if you're very passionate about it, then you can still give your all to your regular 9 to 5 job, and then still pursue your career or your side hustle and build it even bigger than your paid job. I mean, people have done it before, and I actually thought it was very possible. The only downside is that there's a lot of sacrifice, personal sacrifice, because then while every other person, I've got time to do a lot of things, you don't have time. I remember back then when I go on vacation in the US, or because of the time zone. So we'll be out with my friends and I'll be on my phone and I'm blogging or I'm editing an article that one of my guys may have sent to me, or I'm proofreading and all that. And they're like, "What are you doing?" So I'm blogging. So then they used to mock me a lot. Then my friends used to call me a professional blogger or celebrity blogger and all that kind of stuff. Like in a very mocking fashion, but I had to do all those things because I didn't have the luxury of time that they did.
Yeah.
Just that after 2013, I got another job almost immediately after I exited the one I had before. So there was never a time I wanted to leave paid employment. So because I thought that I could do it together, and then I also thought that it might have been difficult to bootstrap if I left paid employment. So
Yeah.
paid employment was actually a lot of sacrifice for me as well for Nairametrics to nurture and grow. So, and fortunately, as Metrics was growing, I was also growing in my career, paid employment wise, and I'm sure you've probably seen my where I work and all that. So, that basically has just been that's the trajectory for me.
Okay. You must be incredibly valuable for your employers to allow you to run Nairametrics and also still um, lead what you do in their organization. And I say this because sometimes it's difficult to have a side hustle and being paid employment. Most people don't want to allow their employers to know because they believe that the employers will think that they're compromised and they're not giving their 100%. So how were you able to juggle how are you able to juggle both? And did you have any strife with your employers in dealing with both situations?
So juggling both was a little difficult because it required a lot of sacrifice from me. As much as I was building this one on the side, I was giving all my all to my regular 9 to 5 job, and it was really a difficult. It still is a very tasking job because of the enormity of work or things that we had to do. And it was a company that was going to transition, so there was a whole lot of work. The only way I was able to do it was a whole lot of personal sacrifice. I didn't have the luxury of time that a lot of people had to rest. Like I hardly had vacations, and even when I had vacations, they were working vacations. When I get home from work in the evenings, I just maybe rest for like an hour, and then I'm back to my other job, my own personal to Nairametrics. Weekends are for Nairametrics most times, and so it's quite difficult. But that's how I was able to sort of balance both. And remember, if what you're doing on the side is something you're very passionate about or something that you have the skill for, I think it makes it easier. So it was something I had the skill for, something I was passionate about, and then it was also easier because it's really writing, recording, and things. So it's something I had to do with your own but passion, your skill, and your time. So that's how I was able to sort of navigate both. And the organization that I worked for was very supportive. They gave me all the support, that I could ever have wished for. It's never a problem. I guess so long as I was also giving my all to that organization, I always worked very hard. So I think I was creating a lot of value, and they were seeing that. And even within the organization, to a lot of my colleagues, it was incredibly. They always used to wonder how I was able to do both, even themselves, because they knew that I was doing a lot at work. So how are you able to do it anyway? Like, are they two of you or something? So it's always been a personal sacrifice. And I think it's been inspiring to a lot of other people as well. Because then you realize that, look, you can be a lawyer 9 to 5, and then you're a musician in the evening, or you're a digital artist in the evening, or you're a social commentator very early in the morning, and then at work you're an accountant. So I mean, there's just several things you can do. The internet has made things very easy for everybody. So you can be multiple. You can have multiple things that you're doing, so long as you're doing them well. Occasionally, they might have been. Are you sure you can cope with both? Are you sure you can cope with higher responsibility? But aside has never really been doubt. So the business has been very supportive as well, for me, doing this. And in fact, without the support of where I work, I doubt that it would have been easy for me to have achieved, what I've done at Nairametrics. Again, one thing that people have to also bear in mind is, so long as what you're doing on the side has enough value that your 9 to 5 can also be proud of. I think that you hardly have issues, right? So long as what you're doing is very consistent with the values and ethos that your organization also espouses, there won't be a problem. So occasionally, even where I work, I do give financial literacy talk, um, advice. When events, I do a lot of those things internally as well, because everybody wants financial literacy, isn't it? So yeah, so that's how I've been able to juggle both.
Okay, great stuff. So let me ask you, did you ever envision that Nairametrics would be as well known and as authentic as it is now? Did you foresee into the future, or want it to be that way, and you just worked your way towards getting it to the level that it's in, or this happened totally by accident?
Oh no, no, no! It wasn't by accident. Oh. It was deliberate. It was always part of the strategy. So, if you have to have a plan, you know where you're going and where you want to be, and you start now to execute on a lot of those things. So early on, I knew that to make it a household name would require a lot of work and consistency. And so you cannot say you start today and then tomorrow you rest and then you start again next month. No. So since 2013, I don't think there's any day you would not see as much as 10 articles being published on Nairametrics every single day since then. Like, there is always something on the platform, because you have to be that relevant, and because you also know that people do rely on your platform for great financial content. And so it was deliberate from the get-go. So the website was always fresh, always had something new on it, for that long. Being on radio stations and radio shows. There was a time that I was funding radio shows from my pocket, and you know that to have a 30-minute slot on radio, I think you have to pay like 150,000 naira or something like that on a weekly basis. There was time I was doing it from my own pocket, and just so that I can attend to a different audience entirely. Because you had an audience out there that might not be online, might just be on radio. So I had those sort of things that I was doing deliberately, to make this a household name. So that it is a household name today, it's not by accident at all. It's sheer work from a lot of people that have been part of Nairametrics over the years. that have worked very hard to do this, and we could only have achieved this because we deliberately wanted people to understand finance better.
So what drives you? What drives you now? As in, I can say that you are the foremost platform for financial literacy. People quote authentic news from Nairametrics. They say it was on Nairametrics. So I would say you're a market leader right now. So what drives you now? How do you stay ahead of the competition? Who's your competition?
Right. So for me, I think that our competition is not anybody else but ourselves and our vision and where we want to go. We we have websites that inspire us on a daily basis. There's Financial Times, there's Forbes, there's Fool.com, there's even Axios. There is I think it's Clippinger. So there are a number of them that do a lot of things that we want to do at the same time, but for Nigerian and African audience. And so long as we're not there yet, we would continue to build and invest. We're majorly in on online, mobile app, and on the website. But I think there's a lot that we can do in terms of video content, radio content, social media content. So there's a whole lot more because if you're trying to get people financially included and financially literate, it requires a lot of hard work. It requires a lot of coverage, a lot of explanation. I mean, who is going to talk about the mechanic and his own economy? Mechanics have their own economy, so who's going to write about them? All right, who's going to write about the Uber driver and his own economy and how that integrates into the larger Nigerian economy? So somebody has got to do all those things. So there's still a whole lot of work to do. And that's why we're actually quite happy that there are other platforms, even like yours, and everybody who's getting involved in all this.
Okay. So what would you say were your channels for growth? As in, what do you think um you could attribute to the greatest to how you grew? Was it the radio aspect or blogging online or the podcast? What made you grow as quickly as you've done?
I think is constantly investing in content. So if you invest in your content for the kind of business that we do, then I think growth just naturally comes along, and that is really the formula. So if you don't invest enough in your content, you're just not going to grow. So investing in content means training your staff, also training yourselves and your staff, also improving how they research, how they scout for information, how they analyze that information. You also invest in how you disseminate your content, how you share your content, how you distribute your content. And then you're constantly also evolving technologically. A lot of people have different ways of consuming content these days. So 10 years ago, people would read content online, like regular website. But these days, people read content on Instagram, people read content on Snapchat, people read content on TikTok. Like people consume content in multiple ways, right? There are some people who they don't even like reading, they just like watching or they like just like listening. Uh, so so you need to also invest in content distribution for those channels as well. So long as you're doing that, then I think you would. I mean, growth just comes inevitably.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. Now, it might be a controversial one, so brace up. So you know that there's a platform called Aboki X FX that the CBN asked to stop publishing cross rates, naira to dollar rates, rates for foreign currency in general. Yet you are still able to publish these rates. So what's the difference? Is your approach different, or they just believe you are more authentic?
I think, I mean, the platforms are completely different. So Aboki FX is mostly a platform that caters to reporting forex rates. I think um, essentially it's almost like an exchange or something. So, but Nairametrics is not a forex website, right? So it's a website that reports information, news, analysis, and all that. So when we report forex rates, we actually put caveats. We do explain that look, we cannot authenticate these rates. These rates are gotten from people on the streets. The rate that you buy from might be different from what is quoted in here. Is just a guide, right? So we don't determine rates. And I think that's a clear distinction. And Nairametrics is not the only website that reports rate today. So there are several other websites that also reports FX rates as well. And I mean, we actually don't also. I wouldn't say that I don't support trying to stifle freedom of information. I think Above FX was doing an amazing work for Nigeria with them also aggregating FX rates. I don't know clearly what the CBN may have seen that enforced their decision to clamp down on them. There might be other things that I'm not aware of, but from what we see, everybody's doing basically what they do. The only thing is that I think their own platform is just dedicated to FX. So it's not like it's maybe a platform that does several other things, and FX is just one of them. But I think they're dedicated mostly to FX. Maybe that's why it was probably easy for the CBN to sort of single them out. We've been tracking FX for over almost a decade. So we have FX data uh, as 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 far back as 2012 or 2014 or something, almost a decade. So, and that's because part of what we do at Nairametrics is data. We're actually actually very rich in data. So a lot of what we write about requires a lot of data, and so by naturally we store the data, we track data, and we store it. And so, for example, when we're writing a story about FX, right, one of the analysts might want to put a context between the current exchange rate and exchange rate in 2017. How do you do that if you don't have the data? So we have that data, and we've been tracking things like that. So naturally, as part of what we do, it's just natural that we keep that kind of data, and then we report it as well. So I mean, we give our readers what they want to see, and our readers say, look, they always just want to have a fair idea what FX rate is trading like from other people, from whatever sources, and then maybe that can just be something that can help them make informed financial or investment decisions. So that's it really. So it would be nice to have them back because I mean, look at it. A year. It's been a year and 3 months or so since CBN clamped down on them. And what has happened to the exchange rate? It's even gotten worse. So I think that just proves that. I mean, yeah, so I think it's bigger than what's going on now is lot bigger than Abuki FX. I mean, lot bigger than them. Whatever it is that the CBN thinks they've done wrong, I think is not enough to be clamped down. Nigeria, like I said, Nigeria needs as many websites as they can for people to be financially, involved.
Let me ask you another question. When you publish information, because now Nairametrics has become a reference website, do you ethically do you believe that there's some information that you should withhold because it has the ability to affect rates in the market or the economy?
That's a very nuanced question. So, yeah, because part of what we do requires a high level of responsibility because there are information out there that can be misconstrued a lot. There's information that you can publish so there's information that you might withhold that might even look like insider information. There might be information that you can publish that might look like you're trying to maybe drive up something. So it's a very fine line that we thread, and but I think over the years we've sort of honed. We have a lot of experience, and we know how what sort of information to report that is sensitive and the one that is insensitive.
And do you still have oversight over all the information that's published now, as in, or you have people that you've hired and you've grown over the years that you trust now, such that you don't have to micromanage?
Okay, I'm the founder and chief analyst of Nairametrics, and as chief analyst, I oversee the Nairametrics editorial board, which is basically a board of expert analysts, and they publish articles via a medium called Blob, and that so Blob basically is like our official conveyor of our own opinions. To that extent, I oversee. I'm the editor of that blog, so that I edit. But Nairametrics has over 30 employees, over a dozen in-house analysts, and then we have about a dozen more freelancers as well who contribute articles for us, and then we also have partnerships with several organizations. And so there's just no way that I can oversee every single thing. So we do have editors, we have a chief content officer, we have editors as well who edit the articles that are proofread and fact check a lot of the things that are published. We're also a very data driven content provider. So a lot of the articles that we write is data driven. So we have a research team as well that churns out the data. And so there's a lengthy process behind all of this that is coordinated by a team of very incredibly smart people. So that's how the things are run. So I don't get involved in day to day. So we also have a digital media team as well who also churn out their own content. So what we've done is just create a process that works and a process that everyone is guided by and rules that define how we publish content on the site. And occasionally there are slip ups, and when there are slip ups, we have ways of redressing those things as well. So that's basically how it works. But if you're an entrepreneur and you run a media site that is still growing, I think it's very important that you're involved in what is being published on your platform because there are standards that you also want to maintain. And so long as you're still in the growth phase, you gotta be involved in making sure that those standards are not lowered. Those standards continue to be upheld. And so to that extent, I'm quite involved on regular basis, at least weekly meetings. I would always have with my team just to be sure that the quality of content that are coming out is solid. Are we addressing the needs of people? What does our insights and research tell us about what people want to read or what people are interested in? So we do a lot of that, and then we tailor content to our readers based off that information. So that's basically what we do. What I do.
Okay, it's interesting that you said insights, because I was going to ask you that how do you measure the acceptability of your content? As in, how do you know that the content that you're churning out is relevant? How do you measure your viewership or your growth?
Yeah. I mean, there's data, so there's a lot of analytics that we delve into. So there are several applications out there that can tell you what your readers are reading and what readers are reading in other platforms as well. What the interest of people are, whether online, particularly within our space, and that sort of gives us an idea of what to focus on. For example, people are very, very keen on career related content. People are keen on immigration. People are keen on inflation cost. So we from that information we tailor articles to those to cater to those needs. And so that way we're able to give our readers what they want. Um, and then so it's constantly it's dynamic, is evolving, and occasionally we run that data again. If it tells us something else, we move. So right now, people are very interested in politics and elections and people. So think about it. If somebody sees two stories, one on election and the other on interest rates, the person will likely click on the election story and not the interest rate story, even though the interest rate story is very important. They're not going to read it, except maybe they're very, very interested in interest rates. They'll read the political story because that's where their interest lies. So what you try to do as a media platform like ours is how do you balance both? This guy wants a political story, but you can also still serve him the political story from a financial point of view, from a financial aspect, because political stories are all around. It encompasses several things: the politics itself, the business of the politics itself, how it affects your money, and all that stuff. So that's how you sort of tailor that content, and it's a lot of work, to be honest. Even though I make it sound like it's simple, but if you're able to do that, then you'd always have people rely on your content. Doesn't mean that you also shift your own position from who you are. Like because people like Afrobeat does not mean that all of a sudden eventually just start writing Afrobeat articles. No, no, no. We're not going to do that. We're always going to be finance and business. However, we can look at the business of Afrobeats. So there's a Afrobeat artist that's very popular now. I think it's called Asake, right? So um, the Nairametrics article on Asake can be what's the value of his work today? What's his net worth, or how much money has he made from streaming compared to maybe somebody else? So you're still writing about Asake, but from a finance and business point of view. So that's how you can sort of cater to that kind of audience.
Okay. I was going to ask this question that you'll be 10 next year. And we see the finished product, but like you said, it's a lot of hard work to analyze and bring out data that's authentic. So to people that are listening to you now, what do you think has kept you pushing and has kept you at the level of quality of data and information to this time?
Passion, 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 and I'm very keen on changing, or I'm very keen on impacting knowledge on Nigerian economy. So nobody's gonna write for Nigerians, right? Financial Times is not gonna write for Nigeria. Bloomberg is not gonna write for Nigeria. And then these people are not going to cover Nigeria extensively, so we're only going to cover Nigeria ourselves. And so, based on that, uh, that keeps pushing us, and that means that we'll constantly be inspired to do more. I mean, Nairametrics needs to be in the US. Nairametrics needs to be in the UK. Nigerian businesses are in Ghana. Nigerian businesses are in Kenya. Nigerian businesses are in South Africa, Rwanda, London. Who's going to cover them? Nigerians are all over the world. Who's going to write about what Nigerians are doing in those places? So it's got to be a Nigerian platform, and that to me is the next decade of Nairametrics. Like that's like what we're going to be doing, past what we've done now, as well. So there's a lot that we can do. You got to also teach people how to write as well. So there's an academy that we're working on that's going to come up next year as well. Those are some of the things that we have that we're planning for.
How did you finance? I mean, at some point, I'm assuming you had to move from financing from your pocket to either raising funding or getting more sponsors for your programs. So how did you work your way to at least being able to finance the business without being your own finance alone?
Well, so initially it was my own savings. Like I said earlier, but bootstrapped. But at some point, the business started making its own money, and it's been self-sustaining since then. I think we've been self-sustained for over 5 years now. For over 5 years now, it's been self-sustaining and it's been growing. So um, we haven't taken on any outside fund, maybe any major investment, or no, we haven't done that. And that's deliberate because we always wanted to grow organically. So that's basically what it's been. There might be, it doesn't mean that we rule out the need to get some kind of funding, especially if it's to fund expansion, then yes. But for now, I think most of what we do is organic. And the interesting thing is that we also, from our organic funds, we also invest in other businesses as well, other startups as well. That might want to that we think are very important to the financial ecosystem. Yeah, so maybe not like it's a lot of money, but we do help people, especially those who are just about starting and you just need um, you know, early stage funding, and so we do provide that kind of fund. So for us, it's self-sustaining, and it's been like that for some years now. Whether it's profitable is a different thing. I mean, but self-sustaining means at least you can pay your bills.
I want to believe you've been deliberate about your brand to the point that you have sponsors now, because when I listen to you on the radio, or I listen to a program that is moderated by Nairametric staff, I hear that there's a sponsor behind, maybe MTN or some other well-known company. So how did you build your brand to the point that people now want to sponsor your programs?
I think it's um consistency, reliability, and trust. So when people trust that the content, well, if your content is very consistent, it's reliable. That means they can use that information and trust that it works. And then, of course, trust is that they trust your intent and your content. I think people would want to align with your brand and will want to partner with you. Um, so so if it's maybe Coca-Cola, for example, or an Airtel or MTN or Dangote or UB or any of these guys, once in a while they might want to cater um, to to the public, maybe push out the financial literacy content, and they want to partner with websites that do this already. I mean, I guess Nairametrics is one of those websites that they would consider. Sometimes we have fintechs who sponsor our newsletters because they also want to be associated with knowledge based content, knowledge based information, and not necessarily because it. For example, for some of them, it's not because they want it to drive sales for them. It's just that you want to be associated with things like this so that your own customers can also benefit. Because when you so see it this way, let's assume that you're a bank and you have customers that that are depositors in your bank, right? And so the relationship between you and your customers is basically transactional. So they deposit money or you lend them money, and then they make transfers and you take commissions of their transfers and fees and blah 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 blah. However, that person might also need information to help their other businesses, okay, and which the bank can provide for. So, what if the bank partners with Nairametrics and says, "Look, we like what you're doing. We have customers who need financial literacy, financial guidance, or news that covers their sector. Can you maybe create that kind of content, or we see that you have that content already and we're willing to partner with you just so that you can keep pushing out that content because we think it's beneficial to our customers. So that is the sort of alignment that you can have with brands, and that also helps us continue to go on. So again, if what you're doing is very important to society, I think responsible brands would support you, and that's what we've been getting support from so many responsible brands, and that's it.
That's fantastic. Okay. So my last question for young and aspiring entrepreneurs, people that want to do something like you do in terms of financial literacy, what kind of person should they be?
There's opportunity for a lot of people. There's a lot that people can do for this financial media ecosystem. What you're doing, for example, is it's very important. There's a lot that other people can do. I mean, you're interviewing entrepreneurs and learning how to start a business. Somebody else can decide that look, all I want to who I want to interview are just women, or who I want to interview are just sports people in business. Um, or you want to interview celebrities who have been there, done that, and maybe there's somebody they can learn from. So there's just a whole lot for in this space that not just one person can cover. And so, to anybody out there who's aspiring, please just carve out a niche for yourself and then double down on that niche, and then you can then start to grow. My own motto is usually start narrow, go wide. And the reason why I say that is that when you have a niche, you can always it's always better. It's easier for you to really hone that skill and own that niche, and then from there you can move on. So you've started something like this now, and who knows, this might just be a full blown TV channel at some point in future, or you can partner with maybe Financial Times or Bloomberg or whatever, or maybe even Nairametrics or whoever, and then this content can be everywhere. So just keep doing what you're doing at it, and then just know that at some point um, you're creating value, and so long as you're creating value, I think financial stability will come easy. Will just match up with it at some point.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been inspiring listening to you, and I hope my listeners are just as inspired as I am. Thank you again.
My pleasure.